The provocation. The Galactic Cooperative had existed for over 12,000 years before humanity stumbled onto the interstellar scene. To the 17 founding species, humans were merely another curiosity to be studied, contained, and eventually assimilated. Commander Vance Harrington remembered the day Earth received its first transmission from beyond the stars. The galaxy had seemed so full of promise then. That was 30 years ago. Now he stood at the observation deck of Orbital Station Artemis, watching alien diplomatic shuttles departing Earth's atmosphere like fleeing insects. His weathered face, marked by decades of service, remained expressionless, but his eyes burned with a cold fury. "They're running scared," said Director Naomi Jackson, joining him at the viewport. Her dark skin contrasted with the silver uniform of Earth Intelligence Command. The Zithari ambassador just evacuated without even filing departure protocols. "Good," Harrington replied, "let them run." The cooperative had welcomed humanity with grand speeches about peace and mutual advancement. What followed was 3 decades of economic exploitation, technological restrictions, and thinly veiled contempt. Humans were allowed to settle only on resource-poor worlds, denied access to advanced medical technology, and kept from the cooperative's inner councils. Earth and its colonies had complied, smiled, negotiated. They had been patient. "Casualty reports from Nova Haven are finalized," Jackson said, her voice dropping. 8,412 dead, 2,000 children among them. Harrington's jaw tightened. Nova Haven was supposed to be protected under cooperative law, a scientific outpost researching atmospheric terraforming. When the Drax hegemony decided they wanted the moon's rare mineral deposits, they simply bombed the colony and claimed it was harboring weapons. The Cooperative Council had expressed concern and promised an investigation. 3 months later, nothing had been done. "The Council's response?" Harrington asked, already knowing the answer. "They've declared it an internal Drax matter outside their jurisdiction." Jackson's voice carried the strain of contained rage. "They're suggesting we file a formal petition for reparations." "More paperwork to be lost in their bureaucracy." Harrington turned away from the viewport. "Is Director Huang ready?" "Waiting in the secure chamber with the others." The walk to Earth's most protected meeting room was silent. Inside, 6 individuals sat around a circular table, Earth's true leadership, not the diplomatic faces shown to the cooperative. Director Wei Huang of Scientific Development nodded as they entered. Beside him sat General Kamala Patel, Armed Forces Commander, Marcus Chen, Colonial Affairs Director, Dr. Olufemi Ademi, Head of Advanced Research, and Admiral Jensen, Fleet Commander. "The time for patience has ended," Harrington said without preamble. "Nova Haven was our breaking point." No one disagreed. They had all watched the footage of children being pulled from the rubble. Director Huang activated a holographic display at the center of the table. "Operation Eclipse is ready. We've maintained the facade of technological compliance for 3 decades while developing our true capabilities in secret." The display showed schematics that would have terrified the Cooperative Council, quantum disruptors that could disable entire fleets without destroying them, AI systems that moved beyond the cooperative's antiquated limitations, stealth technology that rendered ships completely undetectable. "We've integrated systems the cooperative doesn't even have theoretical frameworks for," Dr. Ademi explained. "They've kept us isolated, thinking we were working with scraps, but isolation bred innovation." Admiral Jensen leaned forward. "Our fleet is positioned strategically throughout our territory. We can deploy within minutes of your command." "And the colonies?" Harrington asked, turning to Chen. "All colonial governors are prepared. The evacuation of vulnerable outposts was completed last week under the guise of routine training exercises." General Patel's voice was steady. "The question remains, do we strike first?" "No," Harrington said firmly. "We don't start with violence. We start by showing them exactly what they've created, what they've been blind to all these years." Director Jackson tapped her console, bringing up a message template. "The diplomatic package is prepared. A formal withdrawal from all cooperative treaties, followed by a demonstration of our actual capabilities." "They won't believe it," Jensen said. "They think they know our limits." "Then we'll show them how wrong they've been," Harrington replied. "Not through aggression, but through presence. We position our actual fleet, not the outdated ships they've seen, but our real technological might at strategic locations. We shut down their monitoring systems, disable their weapons platforms, and demonstrate that we've been holding back." Dr. Ademi nodded. The psychological impact will be more effective than any attack. They've built their policy on the assumption that we're technologically inferior. What if they attack out of fear? General Patel asked. They won't get the chance, Huang answered. Phase 1 includes deploying our quantum disruptor grid. Any aggressive action will be neutralized before their ships can engage. Harrington looked around the table. These were not warmongers. They were leaders who had spent decades trying to secure humanity's place through diplomacy and cooperation, only to be met with exploitation and, finally, the murder of their people. We've been the galaxy's willing servants, he said quietly. We showed them our best, our cooperation, our innovation, our desire for peace. In return, they showed us contempt. Now it's time they see what humanity is truly capable of. The vote was unanimous. 3 hours later, as alien embassies across Earth scrambled to understand the sudden silence from human officials, a single message was broadcast across all cooperative communication channels. Commander Harrington delivered it himself, standing tall in full military dress that none in the cooperative had ever seen before. To the Galactic Cooperative Council and all member species, this is Commander Vance Harrington of Earth Command. For 30 years, humanity has complied with your restrictions, accepted your limitations, and trusted in your promises of fairness and protection. That trust ended with the massacre at Nova Haven and your subsequent failure to acknowledge it as the atrocity it was. His voice remained measured, but his eyes burned with controlled fury. Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies withdraw from the cooperative and all associated treaties. We will no longer accept your oversight, your restrictions, or your presence in our systems. You have 24 hours to remove all diplomatic and military personnel from human territory. Behind him, holographic displays showed images that shocked viewers across the galaxy. Advanced human vessels uncloaking near key cooperative installations, quantum barriers activating around Earth and its colonies, and surveillance footage revealing that humans had infiltrated and mapped every weakness in the cooperative's defenses. This is not a declaration of war, Harrington continued. This is a declaration of independence. We have neither the desire nor the need for conflict. However, his voice hardened, any aggressive action against human interests will be met with immediate and proportionate response. You believed us weak. You believed us dependent. You were wrong. The broadcast ended, leaving the Cooperative Council in stunned silence. They had always seen humans as primitives playing at civilization, emotional, unpredictable, but ultimately controllable. Now they faced a species that had apparently been several steps ahead all along, hiding their true capabilities while studying their oppressors' weaknesses. In the observation room above Earth, Harrington watched the last alien ships fleeing the system. And now we wait, he said to Director Jackson. For what? She asked. For them to decide whether they want to test our resolve. The galaxy held its breath and humanity stood ready, no longer willing to be broken. The reckoning. In the vast chambers of the Cooperative Central Hall, panic reigned. What had begun as an emergency session to address the human situation had devolved into chaos. Representatives from 17 species shouted over one another, their translators struggling to keep pace with the flood of accusations and demands. High Arbiter Zulkurin of the Drax hegemony slammed his scaled fist against the speaking podium. This is outrageous. They're nothing but primitives with stolen technology. Elder Thix of the Myrillian Concordat, the oldest member of the council, raised a withered limb for silence. Yet these primitives have neutralized our defense grid at Proxima Station without firing a single shot. They've exposed surveillance networks we believed untraceable. Perhaps it is time we acknowledge our misjudgment. Impossible, snarled Ambassador Renter of the Vishran Dominion, mandibles clicking in agitation. They were compliant for decades. We monitored their development, restricted their resource access. This must be a bluff. The central display activated without command, causing delegates to flinch. On the screen appeared Director Naomi Jackson, her expression calm but unyielding. Distinguished representatives of the cooperative, she began, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade, I understand you're having difficulty processing recent events. Allow me to provide clarity. The display split to show multiple feeds. Human vessels appearing from nowhere near critical cooperative installations, quantum barriers shimmering around previously vulnerable human colonies, and most disturbingly, schematics of the Council's supposedly impenetrable security systems. For 30 years, Jackson continued, You assumed our compliance was due to technological inferiority. You never considered it might be strategic patience. Zulkaran lunged forward. These are fabrications your species doesn't possess. Quantum resonance disruption, Jackson interrupted. The lights in the council chamber flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. The technology you just felt is merely a demonstration. Your weapon systems across 3 sectors have been temporarily neutralized. They will reactivate in precisely 1 hour. Silence fell across the chamber. What had been dismissed as impossible was happening before their eyes. This is an act of war, Renter hissed. No, Jackson corrected. This is a revelation. Had we wanted war, this conversation wouldn't be taking place. We've had the capability to strike for years. We chose restraint. The main doors to the chamber slid open, and Commander Harrington entered, flanked by 2 officers. His presence, a human physically in their most secure facility, sent a wave of murmurs through the stunned delegates. I've come to address you in person, Harrington announced, to demonstrate our sincerity. We have no desire for conflict despite the provocation at Nova Haven. Elder Thix moved forward, compound eyes studying the human with newfound respect. How did you develop these technologies without detection? The same way we're standing in this chamber without your security systems alerting you, Harrington replied. You saw what you expected to see. You monitored our official research facilities but never considered that isolation might breed innovation. On the classified cooperative military channel, reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Human vessels had appeared near every major strategic installation, yet taken no hostile action. Quantum barriers had rendered colonial defense scans useless. Most alarmingly, the cooperative's AI network, the backbone of their military coordination, had been partially isolated, with systems refusing to target human signatures. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Vexnar of the Lorathi Federation, known for their tactical acumen, spoke for the first time. If you possess these capabilities, why reveal them now? Why not continue the deception? Because of Nova Haven, Harrington said, his voice hardening. 8,000 civilians slaughtered, and this council did nothing. That was the moment we realized the cooperative would never see us as equals deserving of protection. He gestured, and the display showed the aftermath of the Nova Haven massacre. Images the council had refused to review when filed with the official complaint. We don't want your territories. We don't want reparations. We want recognition as a sovereign power with boundaries that will be respected. Elder Thix moved closer to Harrington, ignoring the nervous chittering of his security detail. And if we refuse? Then we'll demonstrate why that would be unwise, Harrington replied evenly. Not through destruction, but through isolation. Your economies are interlinked through transportation networks we can disrupt. Your communications rely on quantum relays we can recalibrate. Your worlds depend on resources that pass through regions we now control. At Orbital Command Station Helios, Dr. Olufemi Ademi monitored the council chamber through secure feeds. Beside him, General Patel watched the cooperative military channels with growing satisfaction. Their fleets are standing down, she reported. They're pulling back from the boundary zones. And the Drax, Ademi asked. Still posturing but isolated. No other species is backing their calls for military action. On a secure channel, Director Huang's voice came through. The demonstration at Proxima Station is complete. Their quantum scientists are impressed. Ademi smiled slightly. They thought we were using their outdated resonance technology. The look on their faces when our systems bypassed their theoretical limitations must have been illuminating. Back in the council chamber, the atmosphere had shifted from hostile to cautious. The initial shock had given way to calculation as the representatives assessed this new reality. You must understand our position, Elder Thix said to Harrington. This revelation challenges thousands of years of cooperative stability. The stability was an illusion, Harrington replied. One maintained through the exploitation of lesser species. We're simply the first to demonstrate the flaw in your model. Ambassador Vexnar leaned forward. And what assurances do we have that humanity won't use these advantages aggressively once recognition is granted? The same assurances you had before today, Harrington said. We've possessed these capabilities for years without using them even after provocations. Our restraint speaks for itself. High Arbiter Zulkaran had been unusually quiet, his reptilian features unreadable. Now he rose, towering over the human delegation. The Drax hegemony does not recognize human sovereignty. Nova Haven was a legitimate military target harboring. We've accessed your military communications, Director Jackson interrupted, her image reappearing on the display. We know Nova Haven was targeted specifically because of its terraforming research, which threatened your monopoly on atmospheric conversion technology. The chamber erupted as other species turned on the Drax representative. For many, this confirmed long-held suspicions about hegemony expansion tactics. Elder Thix raised his arms for order. Commander Harrington, what exactly does humanity want from this council? Recognition of our sovereignty, respect for our boundaries, accountability for those responsible for Nova Haven, and a restructuring of the cooperative to ensure no species can exploit another with impunity. Impossible demands, Zulkaran snarled. Actually, Elder Thix said slowly, these are reasonable terms from a position of strength. The alternative could be far worse for all of us. 12 hours later, in the observation room above Earth, Harrington watched with Director Jackson as the cooperative fleet withdrew from human space, their engines leaving blue trails across the blackness. They've agreed to preliminary terms, Jackson said, reading from her datapad. Recognition of sovereignty, reparations for Nova Haven, and a special tribunal for the Drax commanders responsible. And the restructuring, Harrington asked. They've established a commission to explore potential reforms. It's a start. Harrington nodded, watching as Earth's defense grid powered down from full alert for the first time in weeks. They never understood us, did they? They saw our emotions as weakness, our adaptability as chaos. They do now, Jackson replied. The cooperative built its power on the assumption that technology follows predictable paths, that species evolve in patterns they could control. We showed them there are other ways to advance. Do you think they'll honor the agreement? Admiral Jensen asked, joining them at the viewport. They'll honor it because they're afraid not to, Harrington said. Not just of our technology, but of what we represent, the idea that other species might follow our example. As if on cue, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. 3 previously subjugated species had already requested human assistance in negotiating new terms with the cooperative. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably. They wanted to break us, Harrington said quietly. They pushed and restricted and exploited, believing we would either collapse or remain subservient. Instead, they forced us to become stronger than they could imagine. He turned away from the viewport, facing his colleagues with steely resolve. The galaxy will never be the same, and neither will humanity. In the vast chambers of the cooperative Central Hall, the 17 founding species began the uncomfortable process of reconsidering their place in the cosmos. They had ruled unchallenged for millennia, secure in their supremacy. It had taken humans, emotional, unpredictable, innovative humans, to show them just how fragile that supremacy had always been. They had tried to break humanity. Instead, humanity had broken their certainty forever.